Hi, welcome to the Drive Clean Rural Playbook Review. This is Gregory Brennan. I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in to this. If you are looking for the playbook itself, there are links below. If you'd like more information and know how to contact me or Mike or anyone from Virginia Clean Cities, please check the links below. Feel free to comment and share this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. With that, let's get started. So I'm the Sustainable Transportation and Infrastructure Manager with Virginia Clean Cities, and we have another guest speaker today, Mike Morris, who's the Business Development Manager for Blossman Gas and Alliance Auto Gas. Thanks for being here, Mike. I want to say a special thank you to all of the partners that we had with this program. So it was 7 coalitions across the U.S. and across 8 states for the rural program that created this playbook. And this whole project was based around, obviously, Virginia being one of those states. So thank you all for being here. And thank you for our partners, PERC and Alltech. So the agenda for today, we are going to quickly go over an overview of the Drive Clean Rural program and overview of its DCR USA, an overview of the playbook itself and its like resource guide, and then the successes and challenges that we had with the program. And then we're going to pass it off to Mike to talk about specifically one of the partners we had in this program, one of the alternative fuels that we are recommending and think we should be used in rural communities. And I want to say we are fuel agnostic, so we do not push or favor one fuel or another. But today we are featuring Alliance Auto Gas. So thank you for being here, Mike. Okay, with that, let's hop right into the meat of this. So the Drive Clean Rural program, it was designed to engage, educate, and identify best practices on clean fuels and alternative transportation technologies in rural fleets and communities across the U.S. And the idea is that we implement these across the U.S. in these small rural communities with hopes that we could recreate them across all of the communities across all states in the US, from Alaska to Hawaii to Virginia, Alabama, and Maine, so on and so forth. And so the goals for the project were to understand economic growth and viability, demonstrate cost savings of alternative fuels and for rural fleet managers, to empower rural communities, so bridge resource gaps to ensure rural areas benefit from sustainable and resilient forms of transportation solutions. Environmental benefits aim to cut emissions and improve air quality by promoting cleaner transportation alternatives in rural regions. And then lastly, workforce development. So new job opportunities in rural underserved areas. So with each new fuel that a community may introduce, there are new jobs in the area as well. So those are all the goals we have for this project, and they look a little different for each community. So the playbook, so from going over those goals and the project itself and across all these states, we wanted to highlight a few key objectives and create this playbook that we could hand off to each community that may or may not have heard of any of alternative fuel or what the replication playbook is or what Drive Clean Rural is, but we could hand in this link and say, here's a resource guide, here's a step-by-step process of what you can do to change your fleet to an alternative fuel source. So the key objectives were to highlight successes and areas for opportunity among participating coalitions, detail the steps taken throughout the Drive Clean Rural project for interested coalitions and jurisdictions and fleet managers and OEMs, et cetera, and then dispel those resources for future continuation of the project elsewhere. So as you can see, we only were able, like I said, to get into 7 states with 8 states with 7 coalitions. And so there's a lot of room for growth, and there's a lot of rural areas in the US that could benefit from this playbook. So from all of the data and information that we compiled through the Drive Clean Rural project, we picked out 3 different intended end users for the playbook. So rural fleet managers, it's obviously self-explanatory. Those could be anyone from like a municipal fleet that runs lawnmowers and service vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, stuff like that, to someone like an AC company that has vans and service vehicles in their fleet. So it's private and public. And then rural community leaders. And these could be elected officials or someone that's appointed, someone that is just a volunteer that likes to see change and has community experience and trust with the community. That can be a community leader and a change agent per se. in that community. And then lastly, supporting organizations, which is like Virginia Clean Cities, um, Mike Morris and the Alliance Auto Gas, or OEMs, people that can help support the other two in this process and kind of all work together. And we saw that when all three of these intended end users work together, there was the most success. So looking at the playbook itself, this is kind of a rough image of what the playbook, the web page, and the PDF version are going to walk the rural communities through. So you identify yourself as like, okay, so am I a community leader? Am I a fleet manager, or am I a supported organization? Where do I fall? And then from there, you follow the steps you can take to be a change agent to make things different. And each of these have their own different steps, and some are similar, some are very different, but they all have their own tools and their own successes associated with them and ways they can help you succeed. For example, in rural fleet, we talk about identify your needs and ask for help, make a plan, and take action. And then in community leaders, we say engage the stakeholders, people in your community, tailor your messaging to those communities, to your stakeholders, leverage those partnerships, and then be prepared to learn, because this whole process is learning about new fuels and alternative fuel use in a rural community. And then lastly is supporting organizations to provide tools, resources, and connections that some of these other communities might not have, facilitate funding and navigation of how to secure funding, and like whether federal, state, or local foundational funding. Promote collaboration, like be the go-between, be the liaison between these communities and these foundations and the government and things that they may not understand. And then prioritize real world applications of making things happen in the real world, not just this ethereal, like we should be save money if we did this. It's like, okay, we can save money by doing these things, and now we're doing them. So, like I said before, we have two forms of the playbook. We have a PDF version, which is meant more for like constituents, like so elected officials, partner organizations like Virginia Clean Cities and other things that have more of the jargony kind of like language that may be less accessible to someone that's in a rural fleet manager, or that may be like just a volunteer in the area. So that's what the PDF is for. And then the web version, which you kind of just saw from the previous diagram, where you understand, basically figure out which intended end user you might be, and then walk through the steps and use the tools and figure out where you are in that process. So at the end of the PDF and the web version, we have a resource and tools guide. I think this is probably one of the most useful tools that we created from the rural playbook, is that it has 20 plus direct links to ways you can understand and figure out more about alternative fuel use in a rural community. And that could be something like you see here for rural fleet inventory sheet, literally just a sheet of how to track the telematics of your fleet. Some of the rural communities that we saw weren't doing that. They weren't tracking miles, fuel use, and so that's a great place to start. And it goes all the way up to learning about an A fleet, which is I don't know the acronym for it, but essentially what it does is it does a fleet analysis for you, which you can see here, and it helps you understand where you can save money and where it might cost you more money to switch to a certain fuel. And therefore, you can make an educated decision when you are picking the fuel and the alternative fuel use for your community. So I really love this, and this is something that I've been a champion for, and I would love to see get used across all rural communities. So, like I said, there are project successes and challenges, and I want to highlight a few of those across the broader scale. So, just quickly going over these, we have an increased awareness education for just obviously like some of these people, communities we came into, just didn't understand, didn't know, and about alternative fuel use. Many people often think alternative fuel use, think EVs. And while EVs are a form of that, there are so many other fuels out there that not only reduce emissions, and increase air quality, but also are less expensive and better for your engines and last longer and cost you less money. So that was super cool, getting to go into some of these communities and educate them and learn and be partners in that. And then increase interest and understanding of funding and grants. So like I said before, there's a lot of opportunity for funding and grants and foundational funding, for both state and federal funding. And we were able to work with these communities to understand how to apply and be partners with them on some of these grants. So some of them like are rural communities, and they didn't meet requirements for being large enough to apply for them by themselves. And so we partnered with some of them to bring a few of them together and to apply for a larger grant that they could actually win. So it's pretty cool. On top right, we see coordination and connecting with external stakeholders. So like I said earlier, it's bringing those puzzle pieces together and bringing these OEMs and fuel providers and stakeholders and fleet managers all together and understanding like they all want the same thing. It's when they want growth and economic viability for their town and for the community. We saw a lot of strengthening of relationships with decision makers. So a lot of like lawmakers and chambers of commerce and school boards with like electric buses and things like that. We really saw that they took to us coming in and having these conversations about alternative fuel. And when you strengthen those relationships with decision makers, it allows everything else to go much more smoothly because they already have that trust. Like I said before, is that these communities, everything is built on the speed of trust. And then lastly, we just got a lot of positive feedback and follow up. We got a lot of engagement from each of these communities and increased engagement from additional volunteers and elected officials and stakeholders in those communities that want to be part of the program and then future programs that we have coming down the line. Now, each project is not without its own challenges, and so I think it's fair to highlight a few of those as well. So, I mean, this first started during COVID, and so there was a limited availability of demonstration vehicles. So some communities didn't get to actually get behind the wheel of an alternative fuel vehicle because of their limited supplies, and for the same reason that some of these OEMs didn't have the ability to rent out a vehicle because they were just selling it. So that was kind of a problem. Political and social barriers, as many have seen, there has political, situations can change on a dime, and we saw that some people were resistant and to change and resistant to things that were new. I mean, that's human nature. I think that's normal. But we call that a soft roadblock though, because I felt like we were able to um, show them that the return on investment, the ROI, was pretty high with some of these alternative fuels, and that was able to kind of break through some of that barrier. On the top right, we say financial gaps for limited resource capacity. I mean, some of these rural communities just are underfunded. They don't have tons of money to throw at alternative fuel use, and that's okay. But when you don't have money and you also don't have staffing to work those out, it's a chicken or egg situation. It becomes difficult and almost like a stalemate, and you just kind of stay where they're at. So that was difficult. And then turnover of key contacts, whether it be elected officials, stakeholders, whether they quit, resigned, retired. That made things difficult. Like in Virginia, we had the director of sustainability for the William Mary retired halfway through this project. And so it kind of slowed things down and slowed the contact down and slowed the ability for us to be effective in that community. And then lastly, gap in skilled labor and workforce development. So as many know that like there are new jobs that come with alternative fuels. And what we are seeing is that the electricians and engineers and construction workers in the infrastructure space they were just minimal. They didn't have a ton of education. There's been a big push for college education, and we've seen a lot less trades workers coming out of trade schools. And so we're seeing that now, where there is desperate need for workforce development and for good paying jobs in rural communities. And so I wanted to highlight just a couple things specific to Virginia, because that's where we are, and I love Virginia. So these are directly pulled from the playbook and from like the notes that we got from our interactions with Virginians. And so one of the successes that education, like I mentioned earlier, education emerged as a key strategy to both inform and the workforce about the economic environmental benefits, but also educate for fleet managers and operators to dispel misconceptions. It was great. I mean, that was one of the greatest things we had, is that we could just dispel misconceptions with hard, hitting numbers of economics, like this is more cost effective, and here's why, and here's how you can do it. Community engagement, that was something that we really excelled at. Virginia Clean Cities is known for our stakeholders and known for our ability to work collaboratively with communities. And so through some of our other projects that we've already had relationships established that we're able to capitalize on and get farther in those communities because of previously established relationships and just further building of those relationships. So lastly, for the successes is lowering barriers to access. I mean, by creating this playbook and disseminating it to these people, we are able to get people the information they need directly into their hands for, making alternative fuel use a real viability in their community. And then, like I said, challenges with this was insufficient funding, similar to the national scale, limited capacity of staffing and funding, and then there's resistance to change. But I think with persistence and moving at the speed of trust, I think that resistance to change will slowly fade away. And lastly, what I wanted to leave you with is here. So one of our partners from the very beginning was Fredericksburg City, which is in just south of Northern Virginia, the DC area. And their police department helped us host an event in Fredericksburg. And they later on went to buy a bunch of hybrid interceptors. I'm not sure the exact amount. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 10. But when police vehicles are idling 40 to 50% of the time, it was a significant fuel savings for them, and without any loss of power or mobility. And so it was just a no-brainer for them. So yeah, thank you for Fredericksburg. They were supposed to be on the call today, but could not make it because their police chief was busy being a police chief. So yeah, it's great that we can see the success in action directly related to this program, and hope to see more of this happen in communities across rural Virginia. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to our partner in this project, longtime stakeholder and friend of VCC, Mike Morris from Alliance Autogas.
Anyway, I'm Mike Morris. I'm with Alliance Autogas. Been in the alternative fuel sector for about 15 years, assisting fleets transition to propane autogas as their fuel source. In short, we assist fleets in converting their existing or new vehicles to a biofuel system. That means you still have your gasoline if you need it, but propane is your primary fuel, which allows you to save money, cut emissions, and just be overall a better way to do your business. Next slide, Greg. When we founded back in 2009, we put a lot of thought into this, and we wanted to make sure that from start to finish, we were with the customer and we were here to support them. So this is what we came up with. We're actually the manufacturer of the propane conversion systems for the vehicles. All of our testing is done through an EPA lab. Everything is certified. And then we also partner with propane companies such as Blossman Gas and other companies throughout the United States to offer the fueling equipment and infrastructure. So it's just really good when we have the answers to all the questions, and we don't have to depend on others for support to keep our customers' fleets in motion. So why would a fleet choose to switch to propane autogas as their fuel? The first one is the economics. You will save 30 to 50% on your fuel costs. That is proven over the last 15 years. You will save. Take, for example, today, average price of gas is around $3, maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less in some areas. Propane is going to come in at about $1.50, $1.60. So there's your 50% savings today. In past years, that's been much more than that. And but we look at a long history, and we'll see that 30% across the board for the last 20 years. Environment is another huge reason to switch. We'll go in a little bit later on some of the emission savings on that. And energy security. It's a domestic fuel produced right here in North America, 90% right here in the United States. The other 9% of that comes out of Canada. As I was just talking about the overall fuel cost, there's your your last 2 years of fuel pricing through December of 24 with propane in the blue, gasoline in the green, and that's pretty much 30% average across the board during that whole time frame. We kind of we set ourselves away from what happens in other countries that impact the price of gasoline because we have the fuel right here in the United States, and it's not as volatile as gas or diesel is that can change drastically in a day or a week's time. Again, on the savings, provision of gasoline prices low, a vehicle's additional costs such as fluids, filters, and repairs, it can be a strain on your budget. Propane is such a clean fuel when it runs through the engine that you don't have the carbon buildup, your engine oil stays clean, your internal parts stay clean. I ask people a lot, would you cook a steak on your grill with gasoline or diesel fuel? You wouldn't, but you cook it with propane and not hesitate to eat it. So it really, truly is a very clean fuel, and it's great to run through your vehicle's engine. Some of the environmental impact numbers here. Not only does it cut costs, it reduces pollutants such as particulate matter and lowers harmful greenhouse gas emissions when compared to gasoline and diesel. Propane autogas was the cleanest burning fossil fuel and is approved clean fuel listed in the 1990 Clean Air Act and Energy Policy of 92. And right below there, you'll see their actual testing from the EPA lab on two vehicles comparing the reduction in NOx on a Dodge Charger and the reduction of NOx on a 7.3 Ford engine. It's a little more detailed to really show you what you're saving. In your first slide on the left there, that's CO, and we are 60% cleaner than a gasoline engine and 28% cleaner than a diesel engine when it comes to CO. On the middle column, the CO2, we're 21% cleaner and 18% cleaner than diesel. And on NOx or NO2, we are 20% cleaner than gasoline, 60% cleaner than diesel. Like I said earlier, it's an American fuel, in my opinion. There's a little bit that comes out of Canada, but we do all the work right here. We control it. We don't have to worry about the spikes on prices as we do with our other fuels that we traditionally used over the years. Safety, that's pretty big and important to a lot of people. Hollywood has made us look bad sometimes in some of the movies and different things you hear about propane. But the truth is, propane gas is less flammable than gasoline, diesel, or CNG. The flammability rate of propane is very tight, and the risk of a ignition is much less than gasoline. It's non-toxic. It's soluble in water. Our tanks are 20 times stronger than your diesel and gasoline tanks that you find on vehicles. That's why we have numerous police departments that use this, and this was one of the things that it made them really think about doing this hard. They did a lot of testing with the police department down in South Carolina, and they proved that it was much safer than running gasoline or diesel. Propane autogas also dissipates into the air. Don't have to worry about runoff, getting streams and whatnot. And it is the third most widely used fuel in the world and powers over 25 million vehicles currently worldwide. So again, with our technology, it's all in-house. We work with the EPA, the lab in Detroit, Michigan. And with that, your vehicle warranties are still in place. Your emission warranties are still in place also. These are our OEMs that we work one-on-one with, and we add to these several times a year sometimes. I look to be adding 2 more of these in the near future. Ford, GM, Lincoln, Isuzu, Dodge, and Toyota. Covers a lot of vehicles. We have over 300 systems available right now for vehicles. So as I spoke with earlier, I just want to stress that we are a biofuel system. We do not remove any of the gasoline components from a vehicle. We simply overlay some of the components that you see on this screen right here so that vehicle can run on propane, but also if that tank runs dry, it can switch right over and run back on gas seamlessly. until the propane tank is refilled again. Again, reiterating that our EPA certified systems do not void any of your vehicle manufacturer's warranty, and we offer a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty on our propane conversion system once it's put on your vehicle. Again, this is the turnkey solution. We're also in control of the fueling infrastructure. So what you see on the screen there is what we call a Triton dispensing unit. Very much mimics the operation of a gasoline or diesel dispenser. Uses a credit card, asks for mileage and a PIN number, whatever you guys choose that you would want to have in your fleet for your fleet management system. It can ask those questions. We can get that data back to you to punch in your system, and so you can look at your numbers and see where you're actually saving. To best serve our customer and support our customers, we have built over the past 16 years a very large installation and service center. And you'll see on the map, we're really strong on the east where we started up the Alliance Group at, and we're working our way across the country and hope to fill that whole entire map up in the near future. It's just kind of a recap of some of the things we talked about. The dramatic CO2 emission reduction helps you meet your sustainability initiatives for medium and heavy duty fleets. Our systems are all compliant with U.S. EPA and NFPA standards. Labor times and conversion costs are significantly reduced with our system. Zero intrusion on the vehicle's original fuel tank and fuel system. And you will see a well-documented return on your investment. And we are glad to look at your fleet and provide you with a proposal and an ROI so you can see upfront what your savings will be and how fast you'll get your money back. One of the ways you can easily implement this program through JMU, we have the Virginia State contract for propane autogas. You can ride off of this program. It's already written. Makes it very simple for fleets to get started. And this covers not only the price of the propane autogas, but it also covers the system and installation cost. All this is in the contract, black and white, no surprises. Just a couple of pictures here of some of our fleets. This is Groom Transportation. They have about 6 locations across the country. They've been running propane for over 12 years now. Just a huge successful program. Nothing in particular here. It's just an event that we had one of our propane autogas vehicles at. That's that Ford F-350 you see in the picture there. So what you see there in that picture, I want to highlight. This is your Triton fueling station that we can set up at your location. And this is a 1,000-gallon tank, and that will easily run a fleet of about 20 to 30 vehicles. As your fleet grows, we grow with you. We're able to add another tank right to the left-hand side of that tank and give you the amount of fuel that you need for your fleet very easily. The Toyota RAV4, we just did certifications on up at the lab. This is a towing company in Florida. They are having huge success with the program through their fuel savings. Those trucks run 24/7, and it's a great success story. All right, thank you, Greg. That's all I have. Be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, so I think now is a time where I wanted to open it up to people on the call that might have questions or want to know more about either Alliance Autogas, Virginia Clean Cities, or the Rural Playbook and how they can be involved and any questions. So feel free to come off mute and ask your question, or you can drop it in the chat and we'll get to it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, we really appreciate you watching the entirety of the webinar. If you'd like to know more about Virginia Clean Cities, please check the links below. If you also would like to access the playbook itself and have questions about it, there is a link below with all the information that you will need. Please, please, please like, share, follow us on YouTube and all of our channels. We hope to see you soon at another webinar. And like I said, please reach out. Hope to see you soon.